we really appreciate your support for these luncheons throughout the year. I'm David Patrick, along with Brian Afrobaugh, who met you at the door. His nickname is Lurch. You can see why. But both he and I have the privilege of putting the programs together during the year. And I always have the privilege of introducing the guest speaker, and today certainly is no exception. You've seen her bio, but let me just give a quick refresher. Kim Jeffries is the president and CEO of Haven for Hope. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's a homeless assistance facility offering safe sleeping quarters and basic needs, plus a lot more in the education field for individuals or families experiencing homelessness. I've known Kim for a few years, and she, quite frankly, is the perfect match for this position. And she's worked in the nonprofit industry for the past 22 years, where she has served as a real passionate community leader and a mentor in various leadership roles. She was recognized by the San Antonio Business Journal as a top CEO in 2021. Additionally, she has a long and impressive list of academic degrees, again making her the perfect fit for what she does. I don't mean to steal her thunder, but I had an opportunity, and I wanted to share with you part of an article I read where she reflected on her first year as a CEO, which was a couple of years ago. She described some of the faces of homelessness, like the single mother who desperately tries to make ends meet but falls short, the young adult who aged out of foster care at 18, the middle-aged woman fleeing domestic violence and looking for a safe place, the 50-year-old man who suffered abuse as a child and turned to drugs to erase the trauma only to land in prison for things he never dreamed he was capable of doing. These people and so many others included many of our military veterans, and hopefully Kim will talk about that. So many others, including our military veterans, they walk the campus of Haven for Hope every day. If you haven't been down there, I'm sure they'll invite you to come down there for a tour, but it is a one-of-a-kind facility with a one-of-a-kind leader. So please help me welcome Kim Jeffries. Kim?
Thank you. What a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for your service to our country and for your service now in guiding and helping others. A lot of you are on nonprofit boards. I've spoken to so many of you and appreciate your leadership in San Antonio community on boards. It really does make a huge difference for us. I, as you know, have the privilege of serving as the president and CEO at Haven for Hope. I've been in that role for the past 2.5 years. So I'm relatively new. Haven's about 14 years old, so it'll be 14 in June. To give you just kind of a glimpse into what Haven offers in San Antonio, I want to start back at our history and how we came about. You may know this already, but Haven for Hope was founded by Mr. Bill Greehey, who started Valero Energy and New Star Energy in the San Antonio community. Huge philanthropist in San Antonio. And the story goes, he saw a documentary on KSAT, watched that, and then a couple days later Mayor Phil Hardberger was doing a State of the City address, and Mr. Greehey was there, and Phil said, we really need to do something about the homeless problem in our community. It's an economic development issue. He said, I had these business leaders in the room, and so I was going to take advantage of it. He's like, everybody on my staff told me, don't say it. Don't talk about homelessness. Nobody wants to hear it. And the next day, Bill Greehey called him and said, Mayor, are you really serious about doing something about the homeless problem? And he said, yes, I am. And then he said, well, I want to help. And Mr. Greehey said, I want to help. And so Phil, in his infinite wisdom, said, great, you're in charge. And so he put him with Patty Radel, who was a councilwoman at the time, and they created a task force in San Antonio with a bunch of business leaders and elected officials. And they actually visited and went around to 200 different communities across this nation to try to see what the best practices were in homeless services. What they realized is nobody was doing anything transformational. It was 3 hots in a cot, come at night, we'll give you a safe place to sleep, and then you're out in the morning, and we'll prepare for the next night again. And so they created what is now a national model for homeless response that we're lucky to have in San Antonio, and I'm honored and privileged to get to work at. And it is the only comprehensive one-stop shop for people experiencing homelessness in the nation at its scale. So we are the largest shelter, not only in the state of Texas, but in the nation. We have capacity to serve 1,450 individuals on our campus. We currently have 1,650 individuals staying with us on average every day. So over capacity. We're a 22-acre campus, and anything that somebody might need to resolve and recover from homelessness is on our campus. It's not just Haven and what we do, it's all of our partners too. So that was really a part of the design and the model and why it's so, it was so innovative at the time. You know, if you're a single mom and you're experiencing homelessness and you want to go see a counselor, and then you need to go to the WIC place and get your benefits there, and then you need to go to a job interview, you're trekking your kids around or taking buses to, 3 or 4 different places across the community. Haven has centered all of those resources in one place. So we have everything from inpatient treatment, so detox, inpatient treatment, sober living on our campus, mental health services are on our campus, case management obviously is on our campus. We have a clinical team on our campus as well. We have housing resources and housing interventions for individuals on our campus, and we have a whole workforce development arm that helps people get jobs and reintegrate into the workforce. But it's really about overcoming the trauma that led to their homelessness so that they don't return to homelessness after they leave. And that's really the magic of Haven, is that for the individuals that we permanently house every year from our campus, 92% of them at the 1-year mark are still housed. And so only 8% are returning into homelessness. And so we would love to get that to 100%. I would love to work myself out of a job and never have to have a place like Haven for Hope. But it is really revolutionary, and we have people come from all over the nation still, every day, every week, to try to replicate what we have in San Antonio. Because the scale of what we are able to do and serve at Haven for Hope is really remarkable. It's also, every thought was put into the design of the campus. So we have things like a kennel on our campus. And you think, why do we have a cattery too. We called it a cat house, but they're like, no, it's a cattery. A cat house means something different. So we have a cattery on our campus and a kennel, because if you're on the streets and that's your one companion who loves you unconditionally and has been with you, you don't want to leave them. And so it was a barrier for people accessing services. So we have a kennel on our campus. We have a mail room on our campus because people stay on average for 4 months. So they can get mail, they can use it. You need an address for everything. To get a job, you gotta have an address. So they can put Haven as their address on that job application. We have a fitness center so that when they're working on their physical health and mental health and all of those things, they can work on their wellness as well. We have a medical clinic, a dental clinic, a vision clinic all on our campus. We have childcare. The YMCA does childcare on our campus. We have everything that somebody might need to resolve their homelessness. And so there's no excuses at Haven, we like to say, because it's all here on our campus, and it gives people an opportunity and a second chance and a second lease on life. And so we served last year, collectively throughout the year, 9,457 individuals experiencing homelessness. And as you heard David say, homelessness doesn't discriminate. I think it's one of the things when I came to campus for the first time, and I'm born and raised in San Antonio, had no idea the scale of need in our community, and was pretty humbled by the amount of need that there is. But I also know I have a huge support network, and so, but by the grace of God go I. I could have been somebody that needed Haven for Hope, and so it's all those same individuals. We have currently 287 children staying at Haven. We have 76 vets staying on our campus this very day. We have individuals who were formerly incarcerated on our campus and programs for them. We have programs for high utilizers of hospital systems, so people who use the hospital systems and don't have a place to go and need a place to get into primary care, and we manage that as well. We have programs for young adults, specialty programs for young adults on our campus. We have programs for families. I think one of the things we do well is wrap around the kids on our campus. We have tons of partners we have ballet classes on our campus. We have, the museum comes and does STEM classes. We have theater classes. We have art classes. We have basketball clinics. Anything that you can think of to give children who have led a very unstructured life a little bit of structure and exposure to something they may have a natural talent for that could be their ticket out of homelessness themselves. And so no matter what kind of individuals you are interested in, have a passion for, they're on our campus. We do serve a significant amount of vets in the year. We served 491 veterans last year on Haven's campus. We work with the American GI Forum, the Veterans Administration, lots of individuals in this space to try to wrap around and support the vets that are experiencing homelessness. As you all know, many of them are suffering from PTSD or have a disabling condition. I literally just got an email from a vet that we have a whole veterans team, specialty team. They're all vets themselves, all from different branches of the military. It gives them special insight into how to access services, what people can qualify for. And we had a vet who'd been in and out of our facility over the last 4 years, and ended up coming back about 3 months ago. Saw him in the courtyard again, and was talking to him. He emailed me yesterday and let me know that he hadn't been getting benefits because he thought with his discharge he wasn't going to be able to get benefits. So he was getting 0 benefits, which again is a part of the challenge in homelessness. He emailed me yesterday that he has been approved because he was in special operations and had a knee injury for 60% disability for the rest of his life. So that's a game changer for somebody who was getting 0 benefits. And so now he has the ability to not only work to overcome that, but then what's next for him? I think the more important thing than money is always important to individuals experiencing homelessness is the fact that in his email he said, one of the things that your team did was help me build trust again with the VA. And he's like, now I'm gonna go back, and now I'm gonna do the things, and I'm gonna get the help that I need, because now they help bridge that gap between how I felt about the VA and how your team interacts with the VA. And I think that's really so much more important, is the ability for that individual now, that vet, to access services that he was not going to because of an experience that he had. And it happens every day. A vet is getting benefits that back pay that they didn't have or know was available to them on our campus. And so Haven is a pretty special place, and I honestly, it's a privilege for me to get to work there and be a part of it. I'm a pastor's granddaughter, so giving back to the community was a part of the fabric of my growing up. And so I have an opportunity to do that. And I will tell you, we're not a religious organization, faith-based organization, but connection to a higher power is a huge part of recovery. And so I told my pastor, the second week after I got there, I said, I have not been at a place where I feel closer to God than I do on this campus. There are people who are so grateful. You walk around Haven's campus and you say, hey, oh, good morning, how are you? And they say, I'm blessed. And it humbles you and it grounds you in a way that you can't even imagine. And my favorite time of day is leaving at about 6 o'clock, 6:30. And if you've been to Haven's campus, it's designed like a college campus. We have a Main Street kind of running down the middle, and so there's kids playing on Main Street, and they're laughing, and there's this joyful laughter, which is a huge contradiction to where they are. But kids are kids, and kids are going to have fun anywhere, and they're resilient, and it's one of my favorite times of day at Haven. And so, there's a lot that you can do to help support not just Haven, but all of our efforts in San Antonio when it comes to homelessness. We need lots of things. So of course we need money, but we also need socks, undergarments, snacks, different things like that. We do donation drives. We take clothing. So if you have clothing and you don't want to, give it to Goodwill, you can give it to Haven for Hope. We recycle that, and we have a client store. And our clients, it's free. They get a voucher every 2 weeks to go shop in the store. Gives them dignity because they can pick out what they want and what fits them and what looks best on them. So we always take donations. We use a lot of volunteers at Haven. We have about 300 staff at Haven, and we use about 500 volunteers a month. So we need volunteers to help sort clothes, to help do landscape stuff. We use them at front desks or wherever. It just depends on what the individual wants to do. So you can volunteer your time at Haven to help support the work that we're doing. And I think the last thing I would say that you can do to help is you can really see those experiencing homelessness as human beings and yourself. I know it's very easy, when we live in a community to look at somebody who's living on the street and saying, well, they're choosing to live on the street, and I get it. We all have businesses and we all have neighborhoods that we want to keep nice and safe, and I agree with that. But how do we get to the human side of that issue? Because as I've come to Haven, I realize nobody chooses to live on the streets. These are people who have experienced some sort of trauma in their life, and they turned wrongly to drugs or alcohol to numb that. But at the end of the day, they're humans. And so how do we get to the human side of this issue so that we can get at real solutions to help support those who are unsheltered and living in our community? And we have a whole outreach team that goes out and helps, reach out to those individuals and bring them into Haven and other shelters in this community. But really seeing this issue as a human issue and as we can do and we should do better. Just like for our vets, we can and should do better. We should do that for those experiencing homelessness. And so there's a lot more I could say. If you have not been to Haven, it's really hard to unpack a 22-acre campus with all these comprehensive services in one little 10-minute speech, but I would love to invite you down for a tour at any time to learn more about Haven, how you can get involved, and how you can help support those individuals in our community who are experiencing homelessness. And so with that, I don't know what time I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions you all may have.
So
Okay.
Kim, tell us about how a person graduates from the courtyard to an apartment, I guess.
Yeah, so good question, because I didn't really go into it, but we meet clients where they're at. So we have two sides of our campus. We have the courtyard side and we have the transformational campus side. The transformational campus side has more barriers to entry. You have to be a resident of Bexar County, you have to have ID, you have to be committed to sobriety, and you have to be committed to doing, at a minimum, a housing and income plan. So there's requirements for that side of campus. That's where our families are. That's why everybody has to have ID, so we can make sure we're keeping out predators from that side of campus. And so we run those checks, and everybody has to take a urine analysis when they come in. They have to be sober to be on that side of campus because there are children and for the safety of the children. And so we serve about 1,000 individuals on that side of campus. And then on our low barrier, the courtyard, it's low barrier. So the minimum amount, so trying to get as many people, those kind of directly off the streets folks. So no ID requirement, no sobriety requirement, no residency requirement, no requirement for programming. They have all the programming available to them, and we encourage them to do that, but it's on their time frame. It's really just to get them in. That's first kind of entry into homeless services, and then we go from there. So individuals on our campus stay on average 4 months. They are required to do an income and housing plan on the transformational side of campus. So that's, do you need benefits? If you have a disabling condition, can you get a job? We work with over 300 employers in our community to help our folks get jobs. And then we work on their housing plan, a realistic housing plan. So we don't want somebody who's making $10 an hour to go out and get a $2,000 a month apartment. That's not realistic. And so we work on what is a realistic plan that you can sustain based on your income or your benefits and where you want to live in our community, and how do we help you find that. And so we work with those individuals, and then they have access to all other services on our campus. So like I spoke about, counseling, we have GED classes, we have parent training, we have financial literacy, we have partners that do a myriad of different things on our campus. And so as they're working on their housing and income plan, they work on all of those things. And then we have different housing interventions that we can use. So if you know Opportunity Home San Antonio, which is our local housing authority, SAHA they used to be called, they give us vouchers specifically to use to place people into homes. So we get 470 vouchers from SAHA. We have some money for rapidly rehousing folks, so we can follow them and pay their rent for 12 months, and then we provide case management. And then we have permanent supportive housing. So this is for people who are chronically homeless, so have been homeless for a year or more, and have a disabling condition. And so those folks, we pay their rent in perpetuity, and we provide case management in perpetuity to those individuals. These are folks with severe mental illness, who don't have the opportunity to work and will never have the opportunity to work and they don't need skilled nursing, but they need more assistance. They can live independently. So depending on what the client qualifies for, we can get them into that housing. And then our team works with them to go find where is that landlord, who are we gonna work with. We pay the deposit, we pay the rent, we provide a move-out kit. So when they move, they get a $1,200 move-out kit. They get a bed, they get a futon, they get everything for their kitchen, for their bathroom, cleaning supplies, because an apartment's not a home if you can't invite people to break bread with you. And so we found that clients were isolated and they would come back and so by providing that move-out kit, it keeps them stably housed, because now they can invite others into that. So that really a client moves through however they need to. From the courtyard, they can get housed as well, so they can get directly housed from the courtyard. It really just depends on what the client needs and how they move through Haven, and that's the beauty of it. So we get some government funding, about 60% of our funding comes from the government. The other 40% we have to raise annually from the community. But that gives us the flexibility to meet clients where they're at and not be prescriptive in programming. We can ebb and flow as clients need on our campus because of that.
Are you a United Way agency?
We are. United Way is a huge supporter of Haven for Hope. Interestingly enough, Haven for Hope has received the only capital contribution that our local United Way has ever done when it was built. It cost $103 million to build Haven back in 2007 through 2009, or 2007, 2009 when it was built, and United Way gave us a $1 million contribution to that. And then we get annual contributions from United Way.
What schools do you use for the children?
Oh, great question. So there's a law, it's called McKinney-Vento Act, that basically says that if a child is homeless, they can go to any school that they want to, and the schools are required to provide transportation. When kids come on our campus, we have somebody who's over kind of our children's programming. She makes sure they get enrolled in school. It's a requirement on our campus. Your child has to be enrolled in school, and she works with the school to transport them and get transportation set up. So we encourage them to go to their home school because that's where their friends are. That's probably where their family's gonna move back in that same area. So right now, we have 16 different school buses taking kids to 51 different schools across this community. They come down Main Street every day. They pick up kids first and drop them off last, so nobody knows that they live in a shelter. And so it's a beautiful thing, yes, but it makes for long days. The first bus comes at 5:16 in the morning, and the last one drops off at 6:18 in the morning. So some of our kids have really long school days. So yes, great question. But yeah, kids, we want them to be in school, and we want them to engage in school. We also have a communities and schools representative on our campus, and so she makes sure they're connected in that school to the social workers and the communities and schools liaisons, if there is one, at those schools, so they get more wraparound support.
So Kim, and we've all experienced this, so as we pull up to a street corner, we see a homeless person panhandling. What's the right thing to do?
That's a hard question. Somebody who grew up in the faith, it was like, well, you give, that's what I did before I got to Haven. I gave money. I no longer give money because I've stopped and talked to some of those folks. And I will tell you, some of them are experiencing homelessness. but they will use likely that money for things that will continue their cycle of homelessness and not help them get out of homelessness. Even if you give gift cards, because well, maybe gift cards, they barter with those too, to get money or drugs or whatever it might be that they want. A lot of them are not homeless. So when you stop and talk to them, they're like, oh no, I live over here in this apartment, or I'm just like panhandling for my rent. And so what I do, because I feel compelled to give back and do something, is I keep socks, because the number one requested item in homeless services is socks. And if you've ever had wet feet that you can't get dry, like you can imagine. And so a new pair of socks is a great thing for somebody. So I give out a pair of socks and a granola bar and a bottle of water. And so you'll know immediately when you give that to somebody if they really are experiencing homelessness. Because they'll scoff at you and say, oh, I don't want that, if they're really just out there trying to make money. But if they're experiencing homelessness, they'll take it willingly and, do the whole God bless you thing, because they really appreciate that. And so when I encounter somebody like that, then I have an opportunity to then have a conversation with them about Haven and hopefully can get them into services. It's a great question. It's a hard one, because I think we all feel bad. Especially, there's a Romanian family in San Antonio that has their kids out there all the time. They are not homeless, but they have the sign that says they're homeless, and so people use that, the compassion in San Antonio, unfortunately, in different ways that aren't helping support, true people who are experiencing homelessness.
Beginning of, there was some friction with some of the organizations
Yeah.
that supported the homeless, in place. Did we pretty well work that out?
Yeah, we have. We have what we call a homeless huddle. So every other Friday, we get on a call, and so Sam Ministries, Corazon, CAM, the city, the county, our local mental health provider, everybody in the space, we get on a call and figure out like what's happening in our system collectively and how are we going to address it. So we're not just putting Band-Aids on things. And so when Haven started, it was kind of a forced marriage for everybody. It was like, because Bill Greehey had the clout and the money, and then he had the city's ear, and he had the state, the governor's ear. So it was like, you play or you're out kind of thing. And so it was a forced marriage, but, and over time, those partnerships have ebbed and flowed, but Sam Ministries was one that we didn't part, lovingly with at the beginning, but now really great partners. And actually, they've moved into more of the housing space, and now they're developing housing, affordable housing and permanent supportive housing, because they found that that's in the array of services was a gap, and they're filling that gap for our community. So it's ended up being a really great thing. And there's a couple others that, we've parted ways with, but they were probably the biggest one over time. But so those have all mended. But the two guys, Bill Greehey and Navarro Williams, who are both, out of the picture right now, so that helps the situation too. Although Bill Greehey's still involved, still contributes to Haven for Hope. He stepped down about a year and a half ago as chairman of our board, but was chairman for the first 12 and a half years, and so really made sure Haven got off the ground, and has supported Haven and its partners, not just us, significantly in the first 12 years. It's astounding. Bill Greehey has given $80 million to Haven and its partners. 35 million of that came to Haven. The rest went to all of our partners to help lift up the system and the model. That's how much he believes in what Haven does, and it's truly his legacy, and it would not be here without him. Yes?
Well, it sounds like it's a great program. I didn't really understand the extent of what all you did. I know you say you're a model for other programs, but how are you letting people know, like California, New York, and some of these other states, of course I shouldn't mention names, but to say, let us share with you these programs that are meaningful and that can help you get on the right, start to solve some problems.
Yeah, there's been a few things. We've gotten some national media, like Soledad O'Brien's Matter of Fact came. We've done, there's a documentary that somebody out of California actually did. Their Urban Institute out of California did a documentary on homelessness. called Beyond Homeless, and they lifted up Haven as a national model in that, as the one way to address this issue. We don't really have to tell people, they know. They come all the time. Every week. So this week we had Kansas City was here, and Houston was here. So they were here. Las Vegas is doing something very similar to Haven. Wichita, Kansas is doing something very similar to Haven. Dallas is talking about kind of a Haven model. Houston's new mayor wants a Haven, former Senator Whitmire. So there's a lot of communities that come to us. The one that probably should and hasn't much is Austin, so our capital. So they have a little bit of a challenge there, but they come, but they're not kind of moving forward with it. I think the challenge for California is one of the successful things. One of the reasons we're successful is there are policies. There's policies that are against camping, that are against all of these things. And while people may say they're inhumane, it really forces people to make a choice to go into services if that's their choice. So California with sanctioned drug sites and all these things, to roll that back, like how do they do that? How do they take those, thousands and thousands of people that they're letting actively use in a drug site, sanctioned drug site, and they're paying $90,000 a year for the tent? How do they roll that back and put that money into something else when they're spending it there? It costs us $8.47 a day to provide services at Haven. So we're an incredible value in this community, and so that's why they're looking at us. But to get from where they are to where they need to be, that's a hard road. And so I thank my lucky stars we're in a community that has set the right policies in place to make sure people are funneled into services and not allowed to just languish and not just live on the streets, but die on the streets, and that's not what we want.
One last question.
I've read that many of the states look to homelessness and think it's simply a housing problem. And it sounds to me as though Haven has found not the magic bullet, but a good system by which that is not the only thing that you provide. Drug addiction and counseling. How many of your folks who are not required to be sober are using that part of your program? And how successful is that in your mind?
Yeah, so good question, great insight. So Housing First is HUD's mandate. So they are like, put them in a house and then wrap around the services. So that, all of the HUD funding changed about a decade and a half ago, right when Haven was being built, to move to Housing First. We do Housing First, but it works for about 15% of our population. So about 30% move from the courtyard onto campus and then get housed. We house about 5% from the courtyard. If we house them, they're successful. They're at that 92%. But Housing First is one tool in our toolkit. HUD made it the only tool that communities have used, which has led to the exacerbation of this problem. And you're absolutely right. There's not one magic bullet, but I think San Antonio has a great comprehensive system because they have a Haven at the cornerstone, but then they have other interventions that are specifically Housing First and working on those things. And so we have something that most communities don't have, is a large scale innovative intervention that is anti or different than Housing First. Not anti, but it complements Housing First.
Kitty, can I just ask one last? Describe the courtyard for those who haven't seen it. It's really no holiday for sure.
Yeah, so we sleep right now about 650 people in the courtyard. We sleep everybody inside, so they used to sleep outside. Everybody sleeps inside. 200 of them have a bunk. The rest are sleeping on a 6-inch mat on the floor. And so they're asleep there at night, and they're displaced. Obviously, they can stay in the courtyard during the day because we want them to access services, and so we provide meals and showers and laundry and all of that. But it's definitely kind of a first step to entry into homeless services, and not necessarily ideal. We now operate under trauma-informed practices, and so the design of the courtyard is not what we would love for it to be, and we'll work on that in the future. Great question.
Thank you.
on here.
I have something to say. James Taylor is my husband, which everybody knows him well than me. But we have started a campaign, which we have closed for your children,
Aw,
about my
wonderful.
size. And we have been working on children's books now for several years, and they are in English and Spanish. And you don't know how wonderful it is to see mothers walk by and see your book and say, oh, it's Spanish as well. So we've done very well. In fact, they're even going to Europe. And another thing is that we are doing something for Trump. We sent him a book with God in it, and he loved it. So as soon as he gets settled into the White House,
Excuse me, I need to stop you right there.
Yeah,
That-
no
we're not-
no politics.
We're not political.
Yeah. I want to just add to that though, do you have a standing library for children?
We do. In our family dorm, we have on every floor, we have a TV room and it has a library inside of that. And then we have one in our client store and warehouse, so when they go in there, they can pick books as well. So adults and children's books.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
that's what we need to know. We're working all the time.
One of the things that we do have is a challenge coin that I'd like to present you. to thank you. We also have a special membership for the non-military.
Okay.
It's called a Friends of the Chapter. So here's a free, if you
Oh,
fill this out,
wow.
you get a free membership to our chapter.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And one of the things that we do offer our sponsors at a particular level is an opportunity to just give a short spiel about their organization and what they do. So I'd like to invite Chuck to come on up and talk about the Our Lady of the Lake program.
Jen, can you please do your thing? Jen is on our graduate admissions counseling team at Our Lady of the Lake University.
Go ahead, use the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jen is with me. She's in the graduate admissions office, and I'm a faculty member at Our Lady of the Lake University in something called the Graduate Non-Profit Management Program. It's online. It's one that you can take anytime because it's asynchronous. Our students range from people graduating from undergraduate, they're 20-year-olds, all the way. My oldest student right now is 57, and she is from Africa, and she is a sister, and we do this asynchronously. The other thing that the program is about, it's for private university. It's very affordable. Why? Because our founding Congregation of Divine Providence, the sisters who report to Rome, okay, made this particular program 50% tuition. So for $15,000, you can get a master's degree. That's the cost